There are moments when you look at your life and quietly ask, why does it always feel like I'm starting over? You work, you try, you push through long days and silent nights. Yet somehow, your hands never seem to hold enough. Money slips through your fingers like water. And every time you think you're finally getting ahead, something pulls you back, a bill, a mistake, a pattern you can't quite name. And that's when the frustration grows. Because deep down, you know you're not lazy. You know you're capable. You've proven it before. But no matter how hard you work, something invisible keeps dragging you down. That something isn't luck. It isn't destiny. It's a collection of habits, quiet, hidden, familiar habits, that shape the way you think, spend, wait, and act. Most people think poverty is about money. But staying broke is rarely about income. It's about patterns, mental, emotional, and spiritual. The ones that whisper, not yet. The ones that make you settle. The ones that convince you that discipline is suffering, and comfort is safety. But here's the truth most never realize. What keeps you broke isn't what you lack. It's what you tolerate. Every habit you repeat is a seed you water. And some of us have been watering weeds for years. The first step toward abundance isn't earning more. It's seeing clearly. It's becoming aware of the habits that quietly hold your future hostage. Because you can't fix what you refuse to face. And the longer you tell yourself, it's just bad luck, the longer you delay the moment life starts responding differently to you. This isn't about guilt. This isn't about shame. It's about awakening, about finally noticing the invisible cage around your potential. When you begin to notice it, something shifts. You stop blaming the world. You stop waiting for a miracle. And you start realizing that your daily rhythm, your choices, your words, your mindset, is either building your freedom or burying it. Money doesn't follow those who chase it. It follows those who are ready for it. And readiness is built in silence, through the habits that no one applauds but that shape everything. Today, we're going to uncover 7 habits that quietly keep you broke. Not to judge, but to free you. Because once you see them, you can break them. And once you break them, you'll finally understand what wealth really means. It's not about numbers. It's about alignment between who you are, what you believe, and how you live. And the first truth you'll need to face is that comfort is not peace. It's just the prettiest cage you'll ever sit in. The first habit that keeps many people broke isn't a lack of income. It's the need for relief. You don't buy things because you truly need them. You buy them because, for a few minutes, they silence the noise inside. That small rush of excitement, the click, the bag, the momentary thrill. It's not happiness. It's anesthesia. Spending becomes a way to escape the weight of feeling behind. To prove, even if just to yourself, that you're doing fine. A new outfit, a dinner out, a small indulgence, all tiny ways of whispering, I'm not failing. Look, I can still have nice things. But here's the silent cost. Every purchase that comes from emptiness deepens the emptiness. Because it teaches your brain that comfort is a transaction. And once that belief takes root, no amount of money will ever feel like enough. You see, wealth is not built through numbers. It's built through clarity. And clarity asks, am I spending to fill a hole or to build a foundation? When you spend to fill, you feed the hole. When you spend to build, you feed your future. The difference isn't in the price, it's in the purpose. A $5 coffee can be weakness or gratitude. A luxury car can be abundance or insecurity. It's not what you buy that defines you, it's what emotion is buying it. And if you're honest, many of your financial decisions aren't about growth. They're about survival, emotional survival. You're trying to buy a feeling that can't be sold. Peace, pride, belonging. None of those live in a receipt. So the first step to breaking this habit isn't to stop spending, it's to start seeing. Ask yourself before every purchase, is this feeding my growth or feeding my guilt? When you start asking that question, something powerful happens. The impulse fades. The fog clears. and you begin to experience a different kind of satisfaction. The quiet pride that comes from choosing alignment over escape. Because every time you say no to an empty purchase, you're saying yes to a future that actually matters. Money grows where self-control grows. And self-control isn't punishment, it's protection. It guards you from trading your peace for 5 seconds of comfort. Remember, being broke is not just a financial state. It's an emotional one. And until you stop spending to feel better, you'll keep buying what's slowly stealing your peace. And once you begin to see that truth, you're ready for the next habit, the one that hides beneath your excuses and convinces you that waiting is the same as preparing. One of the most expensive habits in life doesn't cost $1. It costs time, and time is the currency that never comes back. You tell yourself you're waiting for the right moment, when things calm down, when you finally feel ready, when the fear fades. But deep down, you know the truth. That moment never really arrives. Waiting feels responsible, feels like wisdom. But often, it's disguised fear. Fear wearing a suit of logic. You say, I'll start when I have more money. But money doesn't come to the one who waits. It comes to the one who moves. You say, I'll act when I have more clarity. But clarity doesn't precede action, it follows it. You can't steer a parked car. You have to move to see the road. The right moment is a myth. A story we tell ourselves to protect our comfort zone. Because as long as you're waiting, you don't have to risk failing. You don't have to face rejection. You don't have to find out what you're truly made of. But here's what waiting steals from you: momentum. And momentum is what separates dreamers from builders. Momentum doesn't ask for perfection. It asks for movement. One small action repeated with faith, that's what bends time in your favor. Think of it like a seed. You don't plant it when the rain is perfect, or when the sunlight feels just right. You plant it when you're ready to see something grow. You trust that the elements will meet you halfway. And life works the same way. It meets you at the level of your motion, not your intention. You can sit for years studying, planning, praying, preparing. But nothing changes until your feet move. You don't need certainty to start. You need courage. And courage doesn't come before action. It awakens through it. The people who build wealth, freedom, and purpose aren't luckier. They just got tired of waiting. They realized that life doesn't hand you permission slips. It rewards the ones who dare to begin messy, uncertain, and scared, but begin anyway. Every day you wait, your dream gets further. Every small step you take, it gets closer. The road will never fully light up. It reveals itself one step at a time. And if you can trust that truth, you'll stop waiting for the perfect season and start becoming the reason something finally changes. Because action doesn't just move your circumstances. It rewires your mind. It tells your heart, I'm not stuck. I'm moving. And in that movement, fear begins to lose its power. So if you're waiting for a sign, this is it. The right moment isn't coming, but your life is. And as soon as you start walking, you'll notice something unexpected. The path you were afraid of is already clearing itself ahead of you. And that brings us to the next habit. The one that hides in the shadow of comparison and quietly convinces you that you're already behind. There's a quiet kind of pain that almost everyone carries. The pain of feeling behind. You scroll through other people's lives, their vacations, their homes, their success, and something inside whispers, you should be there by now. It's not envy. It's exhaustion. You're tired of trying so hard and still feeling like you're not enough. But here's the truth that comparison hides. You can't win a race that was never yours to run. Every life unfolds at a different pace. And when you measure your progress against someone else's timeline, you forget that growth doesn't happen in public. It happens in the quiet, in the moments no one posts, no one claps for, no one sees. Comparison makes you chase speed instead of direction. It makes you rush instead of rise. And when you rush, you lose rhythm, the natural flow that leads to your purpose. You don't lose to others. You lose to distraction. To the endless noise that tells you your worth is proven by visibility, not by growth. But listen carefully. Consistency is stronger than visibility. The people you admire didn't win because they were seen. They were seen because they didn't stop. Every post you envy is just a snapshot of someone's highlight reel. But behind that, there were years of silence, self-doubt, rejection, and discipline. Things that never trend, but always transform. You're not failing because you're behind. You're growing roots before you grow fruit. And roots always grow underground. When you stop comparing, you start noticing. You begin to see the quiet miracles in your own process. The way you now think differently, respond differently, handle pressure differently. That's growth. And growth isn't always glamorous. Sometimes it looks like showing up when no one's watching. Sometimes it looks like rebuilding after a mistake you swore you'd never make again. Sometimes it looks like taking one small, humble step when the world is running. Consistency is what wealth, peace, and mastery are built on. It's the language life speaks fluently. When you keep showing up, not perfectly, but faithfully, you send a message to the universe. I'm ready to be trusted with more. And that trust starts to return as opportunities, as timing that suddenly makes sense, as inner strength that no one can take away. So stop asking, why am I not there yet? Start asking, am I still moving? Because those who keep moving, even slowly, will eventually pass those who stop to compare. Your journey doesn't need applause. It needs persistence. It needs presence. It needs you, all in, all heart, all here. And once you start living that way, comparison begins to lose its power. Peace replaces pressure. Direction replaces doubt. And then, almost silently, you realize you've become the kind of person you used to look up to. And that awareness leads us to the next habit, one that hides behind good intentions, but secretly keeps your life small. There's a strange comfort in being busy. It makes you feel important, needed, alive. You wake up rushing, fall asleep exhausted, and tell yourself, at least I'm doing something. But deep down, you know the truth. You're moving a lot, just not forward. Busyness is the illusion of growth. It keeps your hands full but your soul empty. You chase tasks instead of purpose, and call it productivity because stillness feels like guilt. We live in a culture that worships motion. We wear exhaustion like a badge of honor. We mistake noise for impact and speed for direction. But there's a quiet difference between motion and momentum. Motion burns energy. Momentum builds destiny. You can spin in circles for years, answering every message, attending every meeting, reacting to every crisis, and still end up in the same place. Because activity doesn't equal achievement. Progress requires intention. And intention only appears when you pause long enough to remember why you started. Most people stay broke not because they don't work hard, but because they're too busy doing what doesn't matter. They confuse movement with meaning. They fill every hour with noise so they don't have to face the silence. That asks hard questions. Is this really what I want? Am I building or just surviving? True progress is quieter than chaos. It happens in focus, not frenzy. It happens when you decide to do less, but do it well, on purpose, with peace. Busyness feeds the ego. Progress feeds the future. Every hour you spend scattered is an hour stolen from your purpose. Every moment you slow down to realign is an investment in clarity. You don't need to do more. You need to do what matters. You don't need another project. You need a direction. Because peace doesn't come from having everything under control. It comes from knowing what actually deserves your control. When you simplify, life expands. When you stop trying to manage everything, you finally have the energy to move what truly matters. The world tells you to grind harder, but wisdom whispers, align deeper. There's a big difference between being productive and being purposeful. One drains you, the other defines you. So the next time you feel overwhelmed, Don't ask, "How can I do more?" Ask, "What would happen if I did less, but with intention?" That question changes everything, because it pulls you out of reaction and back into creation. And creation is where abundance lives. Remember, the goal isn't to stay busy. It's to stay becoming. And once you understand that, you're ready to face the next habit, the one that hides behind perfection, and keeps you stuck in endless preparation instead of real progress. You keep polishing an idea that was meant to be lived, not perfected. You tell yourself you're getting ready, but readiness has become your excuse. You rewrite the plan. You adjust the details. You wait until it feels right, until you know more, have more, feel more. But perfection isn't preparation. It's paralysis wearing a noble mask. You say you're aiming for excellence, but what you're really avoiding is exposure. Because the moment you start, the world can see you. Your work, your flaws, your uncertainty. And that's terrifying. So you hide behind, almost ready. You convince yourself that waiting makes you wiser. But wisdom doesn't grow in waiting. It grows in walking. Perfection is a moving target. Every time you get close, it shifts again. And while you chase it, life keeps moving without you. Here's the secret no one tells you. You don't need perfection to earn permission. You just need progress. Life doesn't reward the flawless. It rewards the faithful. Those who start scared, learn fast, and adjust as they go. Think of a sculptor. They don't wait for the perfect marble to appear. They start with a rough block and trust their hands to reveal the shape within. Your dreams work the same way. They don't become beautiful before you touch them. They become beautiful because you touch them. The world doesn't need your perfection. It needs your participation. Your willingness to begin before you feel ready. To show up with trembling hands but an open heart. Every masterpiece begins as a messy draft. Every success story begins with an imperfect start. And every person you admire once began the same way. Unprepared but unwilling to stay still. Stop waiting for the fear to disappear. It won't. But it will shrink the moment you move. Action is the antidote to anxiety. It transforms fear into feedback, mistakes into lessons, and lessons into momentum. You don't grow by knowing everything. You grow by doing something. So if you're waiting for a sign that it's time to begin, this is it. Your first draft of anything will never be perfect. But it will be proof that you're alive, engaged, and brave enough to try. The world doesn't remember the ones who planned perfectly. It remembers the ones who dared to start imperfectly and kept walking until grace met them halfway. So let go of perfect. Let go of someday. Let go of the idea that success requires certainty. You don't need certainty. You need courage. And courage always shows up before clarity. Because when you finally give yourself permission to begin, you'll realize the door was never locked. You just forgot you were holding the key. And once you see that, you're ready for the next habit, the one that feeds your scarcity quietly, by convincing you that generosity is a risk instead of a strategy. There's a quiet fear that lives inside almost everyone who's struggled with money. It whispers, "Be careful. Don't give too much. You might need it later." So you tighten your hands. You count every coin. You measure every gesture. And without noticing, life starts to mirror your grip. Because what you hold in fear, you lose in flow. Generosity isn't just about giving money. It's about trusting that there's more to come, more to give, more within you. But when you've lived through lack, that trust is hard to build. You've seen what it feels like to have nothing. You've promised yourself you'd never go back there again. So you hold. You store. You protect. But the irony is painful. The tighter you hold, the smaller your world becomes. Because generosity isn't a loss, it's circulation. It's the proof that you believe life will continue to provide. Money, love, energy, they all follow the same law. What you hoard decays. What you share multiplies. You can't breathe in without breathing out. And you can't receive freely while living in fear of release. When you stop giving, you stop growing. Because generosity isn't just for others, it's training for abundance. It tells life, I'm not afraid to let go. And life answers, then I'm not afraid to give you more. Sometimes generosity means a smile, a word, a gesture that costs nothing but restores faith, yours and someone else's. Sometimes it's paying the bill when you could have split it. Sometimes it's sharing your knowledge freely instead of guarding it like a secret. Every act of giving weakens the lie of scarcity. It reminds your mind that you are not surviving, you are expanding. The ones who rise the highest are never the ones who take the most. They're the ones who know that life isn't a competition, it's a circulation. You don't become poor by giving. You become rich by realizing you already have enough to share. When you give from alignment, not obligation, you open invisible doors. People trust you more. Opportunities flow easier. Your energy changes, from tightness to openness, from fear to flow. Generosity is not just a virtue. It's a signal. It tells life you're no longer stuck in survival mode. And survival is what keeps people broke, even when their bank account grows. Because no amount of money can free a closed heart. So start small. Give something today. Time, attention, kindness, guidance. Not to get something back, but to remind yourself that you're already in motion. That life is not running out, it's waiting for your trust. The more you give, the lighter you feel. The lighter you feel, the freer you become. And freedom is wealth, the kind that can't be stolen. So let generosity stretch you. Let it teach you that safety doesn't come from holding tighter, but from knowing that even if you release, there will always be more to receive. Because the truth is simple. You can't overflow if you're never willing to pour. And once you understand that, you're ready for the final habit, the one that hides in your thoughts, and convinces you that being broke is permanent, when it's really just a story that's waiting to be rewritten. Maybe the most dangerous habit of all isn't the one you do, it's the one you believe. The habit of thinking that where you are is where you'll always be. You wake up, live the same routine, face the same struggles, and start to believe this is just your life now. That maybe abundance is for others. That maybe peace is something people like you never get to keep. And slowly, almost without noticing, hope becomes optional. You stop dreaming because dreaming hurts. You stop trying because trying reminds you of every time you fell short. You stop believing because believing feels like betrayal, when life hasn't kept its promises. But here's the truth you've forgotten. Your situation is not your sentence. It's a season. And seasons change. You are not stuck. You are being shaped. Every challenge that feels like punishment is often preparation. What if you're not being buried, but being planted? The soil feels the same in both stories. Dark, heavy, uncertain. But one ends in death, and the other ends in bloom. The difference is what you choose to believe while you're underground. Life bends toward those who stay open, and even when it looks like nothing is changing, something always is. You are not behind. You are becoming. You are not failing. You are forming strength that cannot be learned in comfort. The wealthiest people in the world are not the ones who never struggled. They're the ones who didn't let the struggle define who they were. They learned that failure isn't the opposite of success. It's the classroom where success is born. The moment you stop calling your pain permanent, it starts losing its power. Because permanence is a lie. Change is the only truth life keeps proving. Every setback you've faced has a twin lesson. One visible, one hidden. The visible one hurts. The hidden one heals. And when you start searching for the lesson instead of the loss, you start moving again. You start seeing again. You start trusting again. The path out of scarcity isn't paved with money. It's paved with meaning. The day you choose to believe that life still has more for you, your direction shifts, even if your circumstances haven't yet. You are not your past decisions. You are the awareness that can make new ones. You are not your debt. You are the discipline that can dissolve it. You are not your mistakes. You are the lessons they've been trying to give you. Everything can change. Not all at once, but always in motion. And when you stop calling yourself stuck, you start remembering that life still responds to you. So breathe. You're not at the end. You're at the turning point. And that turning point begins inside. The moment you decide to stop telling your old story and start writing the one where you rise. Because this chapter isn't your conclusion. It's your construction. And when you finally accept that truth, you're ready for what comes next. The part of the journey where you stop breaking habits and start building a new identity. Breaking habits is only half of the journey. The other half is becoming someone new. Because once you see what's been holding you back, you have to decide who you'll be without those limits. You've spent years surviving, learning how to stretch, endure, and adapt. You've built strength in the shadows, the kind no one sees. And maybe that's why it's hard to believe you deserve more. You've lived so long in defense mode that peace now feels unfamiliar. But peace isn't a prize you earn. It's a permission you give yourself. You are allowed to rest without guilt. You are allowed to prosper without fear. You are allowed to rewrite the story that says, "I'm not enough." Because every belief that kept you broke was never written by your true self. It was written by your past, by moments of pain, by scarcity you witnessed, by adults who did the best they could with the fear they carried. You inherited their patterns, not their purpose. And now, you get to choose differently. The mind that built survival can also build success. It just needs a new language, one that speaks of possibility instead of limitation. You are not what happened to you. You are what you decide to do with what happened to you. And decision is where transformation begins. When you say, "This ends with me," life begins to rearrange itself around your conviction. Doors open that were invisible before. Not because the world suddenly changed, but because you did. You stopped identifying with struggle. You stopped apologizing for wanting more. You stopped believing that humility meant hiding your light. You're learning that wealth isn't arrogance, it's alignment. It's when your values, actions, and faith finally move in the same direction. Money follows that kind of integrity. So does peace. So does love. You don't have to chase abundance. You have to become the kind of person who attracts it naturally. And becoming isn't about pretending. It's about remembering. Remembering who you were before the fear, before the disappointments, before you started doubting your own worth. That version of you, the one that dreamed without permission, is still alive, waiting, ready. You don't rebuild your life by force. You rebuild it by faith in small, quiet decisions. To think differently, to act intentionally, to speak kindly to yourself even when no one else does. That's where transformation really begins. In the conversations you have with yourself when no one's listening. So start talking to yourself like someone who's already on the way. Because you are. You're not becoming rich. You're becoming whole. And wealth, the real kind, always follows wholeness. This is the turning point, where the story stops being about struggle and starts being about strength. And once that shift begins within you, you'll start noticing it around you, in opportunities, in timing, in the way people respond. Because when your inner world changes, your outer world has no choice but to follow. And the next truth you'll discover is this: abundance doesn't start with more effort. It starts with more trust. For most of your life, you've been taught that success comes from pressure. Work harder, push more, sleep less. That's what the world celebrates, exhaustion disguised as ambition. But tension doesn't build abundance. It breaks it. Because real abundance doesn't respond to fear. It responds to trust. You don't plant a seed and scream at it to grow. You plant it, water it, and give it light, and you trust the process. And somehow, That trust makes growth inevitable. The same is true for your life. You've done the work. You've fought the battles. Now it's time to release the grip a little. To understand that control doesn't create, it constricts. You've been living as if effort alone could save you. But effort without trust is like rowing with one oar. You move, but only in circles. There's a kind of peace that comes when you finally stop forcing outcomes. When you start believing that your preparation is enough. That life isn't punishing you. That delay isn't denial. Abundance is not a race to the finish line. It's the rhythm of someone who knows they're being guided. The moment you stop fighting life, you start flowing with it. And flow multiplies what force can never sustain. Trust doesn't mean passivity. It means alignment. It means your actions are no longer driven by fear of losing, but by faith in becoming. Because every time you act from fear, you send a message to life, I don't believe I'm supported. And life simply mirrors that disbelief. But when you act from trust, from that deep, grounded knowing that you'll be okay, everything begins to respond differently. Opportunities you used to chase start finding you. People you used to convince start reaching out. What once felt heavy starts moving on its own. That's the power of surrender. Not giving up, but giving over your tension to something wiser than panic. You've tried force. Now, try flow. You've tried control. Now, try confidence. Because the bridge between where you are and where you want to be isn't more work, it's more willingness to believe. Trust is not weakness. It's wisdom. It's knowing when to let life lead for a while. You can't receive with closed fists. You can't be guided if you're gripping the wheel too tight. And you can't find clarity in constant noise. Sometimes, the most productive thing you can do is stop, breathe, and remember you're already on your way. Abundance is not earned. It's allowed. It's the natural result of alignment between your effort and your energy. You've spent years proving your strength. Now it's time to prove your peace. Because peace is what makes strength sustainable. And when peace and purpose walk together, life begins to open doors that hard work alone could never unlock. This is the quiet shift successful people make. They stop chasing control and start cultivating calm. Because calm minds make clear moves. And clear moves create lasting results. So stop pushing. Start trusting. You've already done enough to deserve your next chapter. And as you let that truth sink in, the next lesson will meet you gently. The realization that abundance grows fastest when gratitude becomes your default language. Gratitude isn't just saying, thank you. It's remembering that nothing is missing. You've spent years looking at what you didn't have, what wasn't working, what you still needed to fix, to earn, to achieve. And that focus has kept your eyes locked on the gap, the distance between where you are and where you think you should be. But abundance begins when your attention shifts from what's missing to what's already here. Gratitude doesn't deny your challenges. It just refuses to let them define your entire view. It's the moment you look around, see the roof above you, the body that still carries you, the mind that keeps trying, and you realize you're already living inside answered prayers you once begged for. Gratitude opens what fear closes. It softens what tension hardens. Takes the same life and lets you see it through a lens that multiplies instead of divides. Because what you appreciate, appreciates. The more you recognize what's good, the more good you start recognizing. Not because life suddenly changes, but because your awareness does. Gratitude rewires the way you see, turns survival into sufficiency. It turns a small win into proof that you're supported. And from that energy, from that deep, quiet thankfulness, you begin to attract differently. People feel safer around you. Opportunities feel drawn to you. Life feels lighter through you. Because gratitude signals readiness. It tells life, I can handle more. I see the value in what I have. And life responds, then I can trust you with more. The richest people aren't those who have the most. They're those who've learned how to see the most. And that sight, that awareness, is the beginning of freedom. When you live in gratitude, you stop living in chase. You no longer need to prove anything to anyone. You start creating from fullness, not from fear. Every morning you wake up with breath in your lungs. You've already received more than most will ever notice. And if you can start from that truth, everything you build after becomes a reflection of joy instead of struggle. Gratitude doesn't just change how you feel. It changes what you attract, what you decide, and how you carry yourself. Because a grateful heart radiates quiet confidence. It no longer begs life to be good. It notices that it already is. And here's the paradox. The more grateful you are, the less you need. And the less you need, the more you receive. Not out of desperation, but out of alignment. That's how abundance truly works. It multiplies through awareness. So tonight, before you sleep, don't list what's missing. List what's present. List what's stayed. List what's still carrying you. You'll realize that even in the waiting, you've never been abandoned. And as you begin to live from that truth, gratitude stops being a practice and becomes your default state. That's when you stop surviving your days and start receiving them. And from there, the next layer of abundance begins. Not through accumulation, but through alignment with something deeper. Purpose. Because gratitude opens your heart, but purpose gives your heart direction. Purpose isn't something you find. It's something you remember. It's not hiding in a book, a job, or a distant dream. It's been quietly whispering beneath every moment of your life, waiting for you to slow down enough to hear it. You've always felt glimpses of it, in the things that make your heart come alive, in the problems you can't ignore, in the small acts that bring peace instead of pressure. Purpose doesn't shout, it hums. And the noise of fear is usually what keeps you from hearing it. For years you've asked, what should I do? But purpose begins with a different question. Who am I becoming? Because when you focus on who you're becoming, what you should do becomes obvious. Direction follows identity. Always. Your purpose isn't to impress the world. It's to express what's real within you. To take your pain, your lessons, your story, and let them serve something greater than ego. When you live from that place, you stop competing and start contributing. You stop chasing meaning and start creating it. Purpose gives structure to abundance. It tells your gifts where to go. It keeps success from becoming noise. Because without purpose, success becomes emptiness. More things, less peace. But with purpose, even simple things feel sacred. A conversation, a piece of work, a moment of presence. Everything becomes part of the same divine assignment. To grow, to give, to guide. And purpose doesn't need to be loud or grand. It just needs to be honest. You don't have to change the world. You just have to change the space you occupy. To leave it lighter, clearer, kinder than you found it. When you begin to live that way, you stop feeling lost. Because purpose doesn't erase struggle. It gives it meaning. You stop asking, why is this happening to me? And start asking, what is this trying to shape in me? Purpose transforms pain into direction. It turns confusion into compass. Every season of your life, the wins, the heartbreaks, the waiting, has been carving a deeper version of you. You were never off track. You were being prepared to walk with clarity. When you act from purpose, life stops being about outcomes and becomes about alignment. Even when things don't go as planned, you can still feel at peace because you know you're walking in truth. And here's the beautiful irony. The more you serve from purpose, the more abundance flows back to you. Not because you're chasing it, but because purpose turns your life into circulation. You give value, and value finds its way back. Purpose is wealth that can't be lost. It survives failure, rejection, even reinvention. Because purpose is not a title. It's a direction. And when your direction is clear, Every setback becomes redirection. Every delay becomes refinement. So stop trying to find your purpose like it's an object. Start living it like it's oxygen. Every act of growth, every bit of kindness, every small way you help life move forward. That's it. That's the calling you've been looking for. And once you see it, you begin to walk differently. Not faster, calmer. Not louder, deeper. Because now, you're no longer chasing meaning. You are meaning. And from that place, another truth awakens. That purpose alone isn't the end of the journey. Because once you live in alignment with it, the next evolution begins. Learning how to expand it through abundance, through peace, and through presence. There comes a moment when life stops being about survival and starts being about stewardship. You've done the work. You've healed what needed healing. You've learned to trust. You've remembered your purpose. Now life begins to give back. And the test changes. Because expansion can be just as challenging as struggle. Not because it hurts, but because it tempts you to forget where your peace truly lives. You prayed for more. More freedom, more opportunity, more recognition. And now it's here. But if you're not grounded, the same abundance that lifts you can also scatter you. That's why conscious expansion matters. It's learning to receive without losing presence. To enjoy what's growing without forgetting what's sacred. Abundance is not meant to overwhelm you. It's meant to express through you. And that means you must stay rooted while you rise. Imagine a tree. Its branches reach toward the light, but its strength comes from its roots. The unseen part that digs deeper the higher it grows. That's how balance works. The more life expands, the more humility must deepen. The more doors open, the more gratitude must anchor you. Because abundance without awareness turns into anxiety. But abundance with awareness turns into peace. There will come a day when success knocks softly at your door. When the opportunities you once chased now look for you. When people begin to ask how you did it. And in that moment, remember, you didn't just build wealth. You built wholeness. You didn't just attract more. You became more. Real expansion isn't measured by what you add, but by what you no longer need to prove. The goal was never to escape scarcity. It was to remember sufficiency. That sense of enough that no external gain can replace. When you live from that state, every new blessing becomes an extension of gratitude, not a replacement for emptiness. You no longer need to rush, to compete, to hold tighter. You can finally breathe, because you understand that expansion is not a race. It's a rhythm. The rhythm of giving and receiving, of working and resting, of creating and letting go. You become less reactive and more receptive, less focused on outcomes, more connected to alignment. And that alignment starts changing everything. You begin to attract relationships that mirror your peace, work that feels like service, not struggle, opportunities that match your integrity, not your insecurity. That's what conscious expansion feels like. It's not louder, it's lighter. It doesn't scream, "Look at me." It whispers, "I'm at peace." And in that peace, you start realizing something powerful. You never needed abundance to feel whole. Wholeness created abundance. You were never chasing wealth. You were remembering worth. And the more you live from that worth, the less fear has to offer. You'll see that abundance isn't a reward. It's a reflection of who you've become and of how gently you now walk through the world. This is the space where ambition and serenity finally meet, where doing less means achieving more, and where the life you once dreamed of starts feeling like your normal state of being. And as this new rhythm settles in, a softer wisdom begins to rise. The understanding that true prosperity isn't about expansion alone, but about integration. The art of staying whole, even as life keeps evolving. At some point, the journey stops being about learning new things, and starts being about remembering what you already know. You don't need more lessons. You need more stillness to live what you've already learned. Integration is where wisdom becomes rhythm, where everything you've discovered begins to live quietly inside you. You've faced scarcity. You've walked through doubt. You've rebuilt trust. And now, abundance doesn't feel like a dream anymore. It feels like peace. This is the part of the path where you stop reaching and start rooting. Because lasting abundance isn't about constant movement. It's about maintaining harmony while everything moves around you. The external world will keep shifting. Money will rise and fall. People will come and go. Circumstances will change. But what you've built inside, that's permanent. Peace becomes your anchor. Gratitude becomes your grounding. Purpose becomes your direction. And love becomes your strategy. That's how you stay whole while life expands. You no longer need to fight for stability, because stability now lives in you. It's not about controlling the waves anymore. It's about remembering that you are the ocean. There will still be days when fear tries to visit. It will knock gently, dressed as worry, asking if you're sure you can handle this much peace, this much freedom, this much responsibility. Smile at it. Thank it for its concern. Then remind it, you no longer live by survival. You live by trust. Because fear doesn't disappear. It just loses authority when love leads. And love, at its highest form, is awareness. Awareness that every season of life, even the uncertain ones, is a sacred invitation to deepen your roots. Integration is that deep knowing. That you no longer have to chase what you already carry. You are no longer the person trying to escape scarcity. You are the one embodying sufficiency. You don't just speak abundance. You breathe it, walk it, express it naturally. The old you needed proof. The new you is proof. And when you reach that point, something magical happens. Life stops testing you with chaos and starts trusting you with calm. Because calm is the graduation. It's the moment life knows you can be trusted with more. Without losing your center. You can hold success and still stay soft. You can have more and still stay humble. You can receive blessings and still remember to bless others. That's the art of wholeness. Keeping your heart open while holding everything lightly. This is where wisdom meets peace. And peace becomes your power. You realize you never needed to control the journey. You just needed to understand it. And now, you do. You see that the entire path, every loss, every delay, every lesson, was never taking from you. It was training you to handle what you asked for, training you to see abundance not as accumulation, but as alignment. And once you truly grasp that, the chase finally ends. You stop fighting for your life and start flowing with it. This is integration. The quiet realization that everything you've been running toward was always running with you. And from that awareness, you begin to live differently. Slower, softer, more certain, but less attached. More focused, but less forceful. You begin to understand that abundance isn't about what changes outside, but about what remains steady within. That's how you stay whole, not by clinging to the light, but by remembering that you are the light. And from that place, the final reflection arrives, a closing breath, a gentle reminder that everything you've built inside was never meant to stay inside. It's time to share it, to live it, to let your peace become someone else's permission. At the end of every journey, there's a quiet moment, a pause between the old you and the new one. It doesn't look dramatic. It doesn't sound triumphant. It just feels still, like the silence that follows a deep breath, like the peace that finally arrives, when you stop trying to fix what was never broken. Because maybe that's the truth you've been walking toward all along. You were never broken. You were just buried beneath everything you thought you had to be. And now, piece by piece, that weight has lifted. You've remembered how to trust. You've remembered how to rest. You've remembered that wealth isn't measured in what you have, but in what you're willing to release. The person who started this journey was trying to escape struggle. The person standing here now has learned how to transform it. That's the difference between chasing peace and becoming peace. Life no longer feels like something happening to you. It feels like something happening through you. And that changes everything. Because when you live from alignment, you stop searching for signs. You become one. You stop waiting for blessings. You start creating them. You walk through the same world, but you see it through new eyes. Eyes that find meaning in the mundane, grace in the waiting, and gratitude in the ordinary. You realize that every sunrise is a reminder that you still have time. Time to create, to forgive, to love, to grow. You stop counting what you lost and start cherishing what you've learned. You stop trying to rush your story and start trusting its rhythm. And that rhythm, slow, sacred, steady, becomes your wealth. Because abundance isn't something you reach. It's the space you choose to live from. The truth is simple. You were never chasing money. You were chasing meaning. And meaning has been here all along, waiting for you to slow down enough to notice. Now, as you walk forward, you won't need to repeat affirmations or force faith. Your life itself will become the affirmation. Every action, every decision, every act of quiet integrity will be your prayer in motion. And people will feel it, not because you tell them who you've become, but because your presence will speak before you do. That's what true leadership is. Not standing above others, but standing within yourself so deeply that others remember who they are just by being near you. That's what abundance was preparing you for. Not to have more, but to be more. More grounded, more present, more alive. And maybe that's how wealth was always meant to work. Not as a finish line, but as a state of consciousness, where nothing is missing and everything has meaning. So take a breath. Feel the ground beneath you. You made it here, not by becoming someone new, but by coming home to yourself. And as you step into what's next, don't run, don't rush, just walk, slowly, faithfully, with gratitude in your chest, and purpose in your steps, because the richest life isn't the one filled with more, it's the one lived with meaning, moment by moment, grace by grace, breath by breath. And as this reflection comes to an end, may one truth stay with you. You were never chasing abundance. You were remembering who you are. And now that you've remembered, you are free.